I think...
Nope. Don't even say it. I already know you're going to say, let's frame this thing out of metal. It's so strong. You know what? Metal could rust. We can make it out of rubber, right?
Rubber framing?
Rubber doesn't rust. Yeah, I know it's groundbreaking, but think about like those buildings they make where there's earthquakes a lot. They found if they can have some play when it shakes, the building doesn't, it doesn't go down. So a rubber framed out box fan could just kind of wobble and squiggle its way down a dirt road.
It would be like a Jello box truck.
The Jello box truck. That's finally you got the name for it.
It's gonna be great. We're breaking the mold.
The Jello mold.
Breaking the Jello mold.
Right across this country into the starlight. 12,000 miles, turn back, do it again. No destination, it's just a journey. You were my lover and friend.
Welcome back. This is episode 2. We are going to talk all about reinforcing the framing of the vehicle, beefing up some of the framing that's already there. That was a pretty involved process. And then we're going to give you our honest review of the Zero Breeze Mark II that we talked about in the last episode, so let's get started. First up this week, we want to talk about the framing of this Unicell. Now, this is a box van, like a moving truck sort of situation. So as soon as we popped those walls off in the demo of the last episode, we saw a bunch of hat channel that was just kind of glued to the walls and wasn't even welded to the angle attached to the frame of the vehicle. So we immediately knew something different needed to be done if we wanted to put cabinets in there, solar on the roof. It really needed to be reinforced.
First step for reinforcing this was basically we needed to figure out where our solar rack was going to go. So we needed to have very strong supports for that. In addition, we had to have the layout pretty much locked in because we needed to know how to frame the door, how to frame the windows, and if we needed to add any more metal to help mount with cabinets, so you have some really strong points to screw into so everything is solid. So we had to kind of go around the vehicle, make the measurements, trace out on the wall, and just prepare for that process.
This is kind of what we were talking about in the last episode. It's a really good idea to have your layout locked in before you even step into your vehicle and start to build. That plan that you make in the beginning is just going to help you out in every step down the line, and this is a really clear example of that. We chose 1x2 steel tubing to reinforce this framing. The original walls, the hat channel that was up there, is about 1 inch thick, so that keeps us at the 1 inch thickness, but it's 2 inches wide, so that gives us lots of room for our furring strips or to mount other things to the bars. So the first step was to just go and get all the pieces of 1x2 cut from our measurements. This was kind of a lengthy process. It was a lot of cutting metal to make sure that we got all the verticals, all the horizontals, all the tiny little pieces, because we weren't making new framing. We were kind of like pasting into what was already there to reinforce it. So there were a lot of little pieces, and first step, just to get all of that cut. Now, we do want to mention that reinforcing this framing, it doesn't have to be done with metal. You could do it with wood. We just have access to metal working and welding, so that's what we chose to go with, because in the end, the metal is going to be a little bit lighter than reframing with wood. It also doesn't make our walls any thicker than that original inch that it had, so we're not losing any wall space. It was just the best option for us. It's what we have access access to. I'm learning to weld. We also have Kevin. So this was the route we decided to go with, but you could do it with wood as well if you're doing your own truck, and that's what you have access to.
Yeah, with the metal, you have that advantage, that ratio of like weight, space, and strength. Those are all going to work out nicer. You're going to take less space, have a little more strength, and probably a little less weight. But you can do it with wood. It's just two different ways of thinking about it. So while we are adding framing, there was no reason to rip out the existing. That works fine. It already gives it good structure. So we're going to have sort of a hybrid of what was in there, but now it's much more reinforced. There were points where we had to use a cutoff wheel to cut out the spaces where the bars had to go horizontally to connect. So we did that just to prepare to sort of combine it all and just make a much stronger structure.
There was really no reason to completely remove all the hat channel. It's also glued to the wall. It's already there. It does give it a little bit of stability, so we might as well work with what we already have there. So just cutting out those pieces, and now just having a combination of the hat channel and the steel 1x2s. We have that thin wall, and we have a lot more stability with everything being welded together. It really gives it a lot of structure and stability.
Yeah, this is one of those good examples of weighing the pros and cons of demoing something. You might say, well, that's extra weight, and that would be true. So maybe you could have pulled it, but the effort to do that for the amount of weight you're getting back, it probably really wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it for us, and you're gonna run into a number of these scenarios anytime you're doing a build.
If you watched our bus build series last summer, you know that I am learning how to weld. So I did a bit of welding on that bus, but with this new box van, I'm really able to take the lead on some of these projects, which has been really fun because I'm learning from Kevin, my dad, and it's been really nice to kind of learn from him. He has so much skill and expertise when it comes to fabrication and welding and just design in general. It's been really great to learn from him and spend time with him on these projects. So all of this welding was out of position welding and welding up on the wall, and it was just a fun new challenge for me, and it was the first project that I could really do the majority of the welding on. Once I was done welding all of the framing together, this is where Kevin comes back in because he is a certified welder. I am not. So we absolutely brought him back in to check all of my work and make sure that it is stable, that it is going to function down the line, that everything is just good to go and buttoned up. So he came back in, my work was checked by a certified welder, so we're all good in that department.
Call the cleanup crew in to fix any spots that aren't perfect, right?
Yep. You have to tell me truthfully, how bad were my welds?
They weren't that bad for what you had because you had galvanized. Galvanized, unless you get it all ground off, pops when you weld it and it makes a mess.
So I did pretty good.
You did pretty good.
Yes.
So you're
right?
working with out of position welds. So that's a minus to begin with because it's difficult.
I've been welding for
What, 25 minutes, 30 minutes?
25-30 minutes, and you've been welding for like 30
30
years. So what did you call this? A balloon with straws?
Yeah, basically this whole frame is a balloon with straws taped to it. So it's not exceedingly rigid. So that's why we added all the other stuff in there. so that when you put your windows
Right.
and your doors, you're not going down the road and it's not pulsing
Right.
and everything coming apart. You know,
Yeah.
in 6 months, all your stuff falls apart and comes out.
Right. It definitely needed some stability.
Yeah, because it's meant to be a delivery van. It's not meant
Yeah.
for what you guys are trying to do. So you have to add more to
Right.
it to make it do what you want it to do.
Box truck life.
You're a boxy.
When reinforcing this framing, as we mentioned, our solar roof rack is a huge component of this build. So that was a big part of what we took into account when designing this framing reinforcement. We put bars across the ceiling from side to side, ran them down the walls, and everything got zipped into the framing of the vehicle. It all got welded right at the bottom, even the hat channel that wasn't previously welded. We attached everything to the frame of the vehicle so that it all has that stability. Also on the roof is our vent fan supports. We always put 2 vent fans into our builds, and this one was no different. For us, it was easiest to just go in and weld in those supports. The vent fans are usually just 14 by 14 squares, so it was really easy to put those supports in while we were already going through and welding everything together. Now when we go to install the vent fans, those supports are already there. They're the perfect size. They're ready to go.
Yeah, this is nice because we added those support bars that sort of followed the hat channel that was in there, but we did add a 5th one in the very back that was kind of out there on its own free. It was nice as soon as you put the support bars in for the vent, it tied it into that next section, which gives it some rigidity. And also, as soon as we put the rack on there, it's going to be unistrut on the roof, but it'll be connecting everything. So everything sort of strengthens itself in this scenario. The more it's tied together, the stronger it is.
The last area that we really had to tackle was the bathroom. Now, in our layout, this is the only floor to ceiling wall. We really like to keep the space open. We don't like to close things off. So those 2 walls that frame out the bathroom are the only floor to ceiling walls. That means that those 2 studs need something to attach to on the ceiling to keep them upright and keep them in place. So that means more 1x2s welded into the ceiling. We just put 2 more beams at the cross points where those studs will meet the ceiling. And something brand new that we did with this build was to add tabs to those bathroom cross beams so that when we install the 2x3s, you can just screw right into the tab. One of the sets of tabs had to be at kind of a funky angle because the only not square part of this vehicle is the front area, and the bathroom's right in the front. So we are kind of encroaching on this curved area of the front, but the back 2 brackets were just 90-degree angles welded up onto the ceiling. So now when the stud goes up, there's a tab right there and you just screw into it. I think this is going to be one of the easier bathroom wall installs that we've done because all you have to do is screw into those brackets.
Like we said, we planned out where the cabinets are going to be mounted. So the last step was really just to add this 11 gauge piece of metal to the framing that was already there. Weld that in so when you go to screw into it, there's just more thread that can catch on that metal, and it's going to make it a lot stronger.
We did this in our bus as well because when you attach those overhead cabinets, they get screwed into the ceiling and screwed into the walls. So you have furring strips there, but we don't like to rely just on those for that amount of weight. So we always like to screw into the metal framing of the vehicle. Now, when we do that, there's more threads of the screw that will be in metal rather than just those 1x2s or possibly the hat channel. You're just getting a lot more thickness for that space, which is going to give you a better chance of holding up to the vibration of the vehicle with all that weight in the overhead cabinet. Just over time, we think this gives you a better chance of everything in the build holding up. I felt really proud of this project. This was my first big welding project, especially to be back in the vehicle after learning to weld last season. It was fun to come back and tackle something like this, and it was just kind of a confidence boost for my welding because I haven't done a lot of those projects. So I really had a lot of fun this week, and beyond that, as soon as we were done with getting all of these things welded in and attached to each other, you could just feel the stability of the vehicle. It was like a world of difference.
Especially as soon as the crossbars were put in for the windows, which now tied all those together, it's like it went from this is fine to like, oh, that's solid. It's solid. You can just see it and you can feel it, and it's definitely way stronger, and it's cool to tackle a new project.
First big project of the Unicell is done. In episode 1, we showed you that Zero Breeze sent us their Mark II portable air conditioner to test out over the course of our build this summer. So we just kind of showed you what was in the box last week, took it out. We were still trying to kind of figure out what to do, what components came with it. So this week, we were really able to dig in and give it a good test. The Zero Breeze Mark II is a portable, battery-powered AC unit. This was really appealing to us because we work off of extension cords in that tent. Plugs are limited.
Yeah.
They are valuable space. So we did not want to take up another plug with a cooling unit. With the Zero Breeze, we can actually plug the 24-volt battery pack into our bus and charge it overnight. Then the next morning when we go into our shop to work, we plug the battery pack into the Zero Breeze, and we can then cool our space throughout the hottest part of the workday.
Now, while this is a 2300 BTU unit, it's not going to cool a big space down like air conditioning per se. A small space it could for sure. What I really liked about it is just the ability to take it with you anywhere, right? So we've used it in a whole bunch of applications already, just sort of having it sitting in the box so you can walk over to that area and it's sort of cooling the box. But also you can put it in a confined area, so if you're working in the overhead cab, having that relief from the heat is really nice. In addition, we had our bus was in the shop getting a brake line repaired. And we were sleeping in a bedroom at family's house. It was a little warm, so we were able to bring it with us there and blow it right on us, exhaust it out that window, and it was actually really nice just being able to take it with you.
We've been carrying this thing around with us all week, like Drew said, into all these different situations. So I think just the versatility of it is one of our favorite parts of the whole unit. So this unit can run off of the 24-volt battery like we mentioned, but also if the battery power runs out, you can plug it right into a regular 110 outlet. So it can run off of AC or DC power, and that versatility is just going to get you air conditioning in more situations, in more spaces. We've seen other people using them in tents, in cars, all kinds of different things.
So basically how this works is you can take it anywhere as a personal cooler, especially if you're in a big open space, and you can just sort of set it. If you're trying to cool a space like the inside of your van or bus, it does have the ability to exhaust out, right? So you can connect two hoses to the back. One is exhausting the heat and one is pulling in fresh air. And they even give you an adapter, a foam adapter that you can put into windows. So you could run those tubes out a window. So you're getting rid of all the heat and you're bringing fresh air into the unit, and then out of the front, it's pushing the cold air. That way you're not exhausting the heat right back into the space. Also, there's a hose for the condensation. You can plug in, you could run that out.
Just a few numbers for you that we discovered throughout the course of using the Mark II. This unit pulls about 240 watts when actually plugged into our bus. Not charging the battery, but running the unit inside of our bus, just 240 watts, which is really low.
Yeah.
On our power system, we could run that all day, all night, no problem. And then on a full battery charge with the 24-volt battery pack, if that has a full charge to start the day, we can get about 5 hours from the air conditioning settings that we use. Other people have said about 3 to 5. We've been pretty consistent on that 5-hour mark, which gets us through the hottest part of our workday. The best way that we discovered to use it for our personal shop situation is to set it into the Unicell and just install one of the tubes on the back for the exhaust to kind of kick the exhaust outside of the vehicle. We put the condensation tube on the back and we let the intake just take air from right around the unit. We found that this was kind of the best solution just for our space. And it creates so much condensation being in the Northeast in the shop, but we just let that run onto the ground because we have a gravel floor, so it's not that big of a deal. It works really well for our space. We do have an AC unit in our bus. You may have seen us talk about that in the past, but just for the sake of the experiment, we took the Zero Breeze into our bus to see what it would do and how it would function in that 112 square feet. As we predicted, it doesn't cool the entire space. A shuttle bus is a very difficult space to air condition, mostly because of all of the windows.
Yeah.
A lot of windows, and that really kind of shoots you in the foot with any kind of air conditioning solution. But we found that the best application for the Zero Breeze is exactly what they say, a personal cooling unit. We would put it on our countertop and just point it at us while we slept. And it cooled the bed area really, really well. So the condensation tube we would put right into our sink because our sink is right there, so it would just run down the drain. This worked really well for us. It cooled the bed area the whole night. And like we said, it's only 240 watts, so running it plugged into our bus, no problem all night long. One of the most important ways that we used the Zero Breeze this week was to make sure that Mateo wasn't overheating. We put the Mark II down in the Unicell, and at first he didn't know what the heck it was. Once we turned it on and he discovered that cool air was coming out the front of the unit, he pretty much did not leave its side for the whole week. Once he discovered that it was air conditioning and it was blowing right on him, cool air in the really hot workspace, he was sold.
Yeah, once again, this thing, like I said, it has a lot of cool ways you can use it. There were a few points where we were doing some more dangerous stuff and Mateo had to go into the cab of the box. So we were welding or grinding or whatever, and you didn't want him back there. We were able to put him in the cab, close the pass-through. What we did is we took the unit and put it outside, and we just put the cold air blower in the crack of the window from like the driver's side, and just cooled the cab for him while we were working for a little bit in the back before we could let him back out.
I think pets is another just huge application for this, because keeping them cool in the summertime, especially in an RV, bus, van, any type of vehicle like that, I know it's a huge concern, and it is for us. It's a big reason why we included AC in our bus. So keeping pets cool, really, really big part of having the Zero Breeze.
So for the most part, we really like this, and the only real drawback I've found is you can't run it off the battery and charge at the same time, at least straight out of the box with what they give you, because the wire that connects to the unit has to either be running to the wall or it's a small wire that connects down to the battery. That's just how it hooks up. So, and without getting an additional charger from them where you could charge the battery while you're running it off the wall, you can't really do that. So a little disappointing that out of the box that's not an option, though it could be done. I guess you'd have to buy another charger. The other super nitpicky thing is the way that wire connects to the unit. I like that the plug itself is super solid and it threads in, which I love, but it's very tight, at least for my fingers, to get in there and unscrew that.
I'm the one that always has to do it because I have smaller fingers. Drew can't turn the little wheel on the plug to get it to connect in. So that's probably a really nitpicky thing, but
Yeah, the way they're doing it overall is great because you can't yank it out of there. It's threaded in. It's just the space around it is very tight. It's a little bit tricky. I mean, yeah, we're nitpicking at this point, which kind of says, like, overall we think the thing is awesome and we really like it. It's cool to finally have one.
so the verdict is it won't cool your entire bus if you have a bus the size of ours. It would probably cool a small van.
Yeah.
It would probably do that really well. But for shuttle buses, you're going to need something a little bit larger. I think the best application for the Zero Breeze outside of our workshop, if you were going to use it for something like a bus, is if you want an AC solution that includes no install. You just take it out of the box and you use it. So it's not going to cool your whole space because you're making a compromise there with zero installation, but you are getting that immediate personal cooling. You can set it on your counter. You can bring it out on the hottest days. It's a low watt draw. So if that's something you're looking for, just ease of use, versatility, take it out of the box, use it day of, I think this is going to be your best solution. We also have a coupon code for the Zero Breeze Mark II. So if you want to keep yourself a little bit cooler this summer during your own build, or you want a really easy, immediate way to cool off that space in your bus, you can get $50 off with our code OWTR, and they'll give you a little bit of discount on their website.
That wraps it up for episode 2. The vehicle has been framed and reinforced. The windows and the door are framed out, so we're ready for installation of those. And that's good. That means we're moving forward. That means the walls will be going up soon, and it's pretty exciting. In addition, Zero Breeze, definitely a thumbs up. Pretty cool to have that personal cooling unit in our workspace. All right, guys, we gotta get out of here. We will check you later.